The mahogany conference table gleamed under the soft lights of Preston and Associates law firm as I sat uncomfortably in my second-hand suit. Around me, my extended family was dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes from across the table, while my father studied his manicured nails with exaggerated boredom. "Let's continue with the reading," Mr. Preston said, adjusting his glasses. "To my grandson, Michael Preston Collins, I leave the old family farmland in Weston County, all 50 acres of it, including the structures thereon." The room fell silent for a moment before my Uncle Robert burst into laughter. 50 acres of nothing. That's perfect. He turned to my father, his brother. "Your boy gets rocks and dirt while my kids get the investment portfolio. Poetic justice, wouldn't you say, Richard?" My father's mouth twitched into a smile. "Well, he always did prefer digging in the dirt to learning the family business." I sat there, trying to maintain my composure as Mr. Preston continued reading, detailing the millions in stocks, bonds, and cash properties that would go to my cousins. By the time he finished, the contrast couldn't have been clearer. Everyone else had received valuable assets while I got land that the family had written off decades ago. As we filed out of the conference room, my cousin James clapped a hand on my shoulder, his Rolex flashing under the lights. "Don't worry, Mike. I'm sure you can sell the property to some developer for enough to pay off your student loans." His sympathy was as fake as his tan. My mother finally approached me in the parking lot, my father trailing reluctantly behind her. "Michael," she began, her voice strained, "you understand why your grandfather did this, don't you? After you rejected the family business to pursue," she paused, waving her hand dismissively, "environmental science, he felt you made your choice." "Mom, I didn't reject anything. I just wanted to." "It doesn't matter now," my father interrupted. The old man made his decision. "Maybe you can sell that worthless land for a few thousand and get yourself started somewhere." I watched them drive away in their luxury SUV, feeling a complicated mix of hurt, anger, and something else I couldn't quite name. Maybe relief. The Collins family fortune had always come with strings attached, strings that felt more like chains the older I got. Grandfather William Collins had built Collins Development from nothing, transforming it into one of the largest commercial real estate developers in the state. The family expectation was clear. Every Collins man would join the business regardless of their interests or talents. I'd broken that tradition by pursuing environmental geology instead. 2 weeks later, I drove out to see my inheritance. The Collins family farmland hadn't been worked in 30 years, not since my great-grandparents had passed away. My grandfather had kept it out of sentiment but considered it worthless compared to the prime urban properties Collins Development specialized in. The narrow gravel road was overgrown, branches scraping against my used Subaru as I made my way to what had once been the main house. The 2-story farmhouse was in better condition than I'd expected, neglected but structurally sound. Behind it stood a massive old barn, its red paint faded to a dusty pink. As I walked the property line, my training kicked in. The rolling hills, the specific vegetation patterns, the rock outcroppings visible on the north ridge, they all told a story that my family, with their focus on immediate profits, had never bothered to read. That evening, sitting on the farmhouse's sagging porch, I called my college roommate, Eliza Wong, now working for the U.S. Geological Survey. "Hey, Liz, remember that formation we studied in advanced geological mapping? The one with the unusual mineral deposits? I think I'm looking at something similar." "On your grandfather's land? That's in the Weston Basin, right?" Her interest was immediately piqued. "Mike, that whole area has been getting attention lately. There've been preliminary findings off lithium deposits," I finished for her, "potentially significant ones." There was a pause before Eliza spoke again. "How soon can I come out with some equipment?" Over the next few weeks, Eliza and I conducted preliminary surveys of the property. We kept our work quiet, using equipment borrowed from her department under the guise of a training exercise. What we found exceeded even my initial suspicions. "These readings are off the charts, Mike," Eliza said one evening as we reviewed the data in the farmhouse kitchen. "If the deep samples confirm this, you're sitting on one of the largest lithium deposits east of the Mississippi, with the demand for electric vehicle batteries soaring." She didn't need to finish. We both knew what this meant. I hired an independent geological survey team, paying for it with nearly all my savings. Their comprehensive report confirmed everything. The worthless farmland contained lithium deposits conservatively valued at $175 million, potentially much more with proper extraction. The day I received the official report, I sat in the old barn, where we'd found the most promising samples, and thought about what to do next. The Collins family had always valued money above all else. Now I had the potential for more wealth than even my grandfather had accumulated, without compromising my environmental principles. I called my parents first. "Michael, is everything all right?" My mother answered, surprise evident in her voice. "I rarely called these days. Everything's fine, Mom. I wanted to let you and Dad know that I've decided what to do with grandfather's land." "Oh, found a buyer willing to take it off your hands?" I could hear the dismissive smile in her voice. "Not exactly. I've had some geological surveys done. Turns out the property sits on one of the largest lithium deposits in the eastern United States." The silence that followed was deafening. "What did you say?" My father's voice now sharp and suddenly attentive. "The land is worth approximately $175 million, Dad. Possibly more." Another long silence. "We'll be there tomorrow morning," he said finally, his tone completely transformed. "Don't do anything until we arrive. Your mother and I can help you navigate this." I ended the call and leaned back against a wooden support beam, smiling slightly at how predictable they were. Next, I called my Uncle Robert. The news spread through the family like wildfire. By evening, I'd received calls from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, all suddenly concerned about my well-being and eager to help with my newfound fortune. The next morning, I sat waiting on the farmhouse porch when 3 luxury cars pulled up in a cloud of dust. My parents emerged from the first, followed by Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia from the second, and my cousins James and Elizabeth from the third. "Michael." My mother rushed forward to embrace me, the first hug she'd offered in years. "Darling, we're so proud of you for discovering this opportunity." Uncle Robert was less subtle. "Now, Mike, before you make any decisions, you should know that Collins Development has the infrastructure to handle this kind of project. We could fold this property into our existing operations and pay me a token amount while the company reaps the real benefits." I finished for him. My father stepped forward, his business smile firmly in place. "Son, what Robert means is that we can help you maximize the value here. You're not experienced in development deals." "That's true," I acknowledged. "I'm not a developer. I'm an environmental geologist, exactly the right person to understand what we're dealing with." I led them into the barn, where I'd set up displays of the survey results, extraction options, and environmental impact assessments. The lithium here isn't just valuable, it's accessible through low-impact extraction methods that would preserve most of the land's surface features. I explained, watching their expressions shift between greed and confusion as I used technical terms they didn't understand. "The point is," my cousin James interrupted, "how quickly can we get this operation up and running?" The family company called. "There's no we here, James," I said firmly. "This land and everything on or under it belongs to me alone." "Now wait just a minute," Uncle Robert blustered, his face reddening. "You're a Collins. This should benefit the whole family." I looked at him steadily. The same family that laughed when I received this worthless dirt? The same family that pushed me away because I chose science over real estate development? "Michael," my mother began, her voice taking on the cajoling tone she used when I was a child. "Family is family. Your grandfather would have wanted." "Grandfather gave everyone else liquid assets and investments," I interrupted. "He gave me this land because he thought it was worthless." He was wrong. My father's patience finally snapped. "Listen to me. You don't have the connections or the know-how to develop this properly. Sign the land over to Collins Development and we'll make you a vice president with a generous compensation package." I smiled. "That's a kind offer, Dad. But I've already partnered with Sustainable Resource Extraction. They're leaders in environmentally responsible mining." The silence that followed was absolute. "You did what?" My father finally managed. "I signed a preliminary agreement yesterday. Sri will handle the extraction using cutting-edge methods that minimize environmental impact. They're offering royalties that will exceed $200 million over the life of the project." "You can't do this," Uncle Robert shouted. "That's Collins family potential you're giving away to strangers." "Actually, I can, and there's more." I handed each of them a folder. These are the incorporation documents for the Collins Environmental Research Foundation. 50% of my proceeds from this project will fund scholarships and research in sustainable resource management. My cousin Elizabeth, always the quickest, flipped through the documents first. This says the foundation will prioritize funding students from rural communities pursuing environmental sciences. That's right, I confirmed. People like me, who might otherwise be pressured into careers that don't align with their values. My father threw his folder down. This is ridiculous. You're throwing away a fortune on charity. No, Dad, I'm investing in the future while still securing my own. The remaining proceeds will make me independently wealthy while supporting work I believe in. You'll regret this, he said coldly. When you change your mind, don't come crawling back. I won't, I assured him. But there is one provision you should be aware of. I pointed to a specific paragraph in the documents. The foundation bylaws include a clause permanently preventing Collins Development or any of its subsidiaries from receiving grants or partnerships. You all made your choice when you decided land was worthless if it couldn't immediately be turned into a strip mall. They left in a storm of threats and recriminations. My mother paused at the door, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, perhaps a mixture of anger and something like respect. You've become more like your grandfather than you know, she said finally. He would have hated your decision, but admired how you made it. After they left, I walked the property alone, thinking about the future. The development would change this land, but with the right approach, we could extract what was valuable while preserving what was precious. The old farmhouse would become the local headquarters for the foundation, supporting research on sustainable practices. 6 months later, as the first phase of careful extraction began, I received an unexpected visitor. My grandfather's old lawyer, Mr. Preston, drove up in his modest sedan. I hoped you wouldn't mind a visit, he said, shaking my hand. I've been following your progress with interest. We walked the property together, and I showed him the careful work being done to preserve as much of the natural landscape as possible while accessing the lithium deposits. Your grandfather would never admit it, Mr. Preston said as we stood overlooking the operation, but he suspected there might be something valuable here. I turned to him in surprise. Inu? The old lawyer smiled. William had preliminary tests done 15 years ago that showed potential, but developing it would have required expertise that Collins Development didn't have, environmental expertise. So when he left me this land, he was giving you a test and an opportunity in his own stubborn way. The test was whether you'd look beyond what everyone else saw. The opportunity was to prove that your chosen path had value. I shook my head, laughing quietly at my grandfather's roundabout method. He could have just told me. That wasn't William's style. He believed people needed to find their own ways. Mr. Preston handed me an envelope. He asked me to give you this if you ever discovered the land's true value. Inside was a single page in my grandfather's handwriting. Michael, if you're reading this, you've proven what I suspected. Sometimes the most valuable things aren't obvious to those too busy looking elsewhere. Your cousins will inherit what I built. You will build something new. That makes you more like me than any of them. Use it wisely, grandfather. Standing there with the letter in my hands, watching carefully designed extraction equipment work in harmony with the land, I felt a sense of vindication and purpose stronger than any resentment toward my family. They had valued only what they understood and dismissed everything else. In doing so, they'd given me exactly what I needed to create something they could never imagine. A fortune built on sustainability rather than exploitation. The irony wasn't lost on me that in trying to punish me with worthless land, they had instead given me the perfect foundation for a legacy that would long outlast Collins Development's gleaming towers of glass and steel. Sometimes what looks like the worst inheritance becomes the greatest gift of all.